Hello, this is History Shorts with the Artifactual Scholar. Today, I'll be talking about the Republic of Vermont. Home to the Green Mountains and dotted with picturesque towns and villages, Vermont is quintessentially New England. Yet the early history of Vermont is unique among its neighbors. Unlike Massachusetts, New Hampshire, or New York, Vermont was never chartered as a British colony. For much of the colonial period, the region of Vermont remained a lightly populated hinterland wedged between the British colonies of New Hampshire and New York and French Canada. In the 1660s, the French established a few fortified outposts in the vicinity of Lake Champlain, which was named after the great French explorer Samuel de Champlain. It was, in fact, Champlain who named the region Vermont, or Green Mountain. The earliest British settlement in the region was established in the 1720s. By the 1740s and 50s, Benning Wentworth, the colonial governor of New Hampshire, had begun to issue grants for land in the southern part of the Green Mountains. Although Wentworth's action was driven by a desire for personal profit, the so-called New Hampshire grants drew British colonists to the region. After the end of the French and Indian War in 1763, more British settlers, mostly from Massachusetts and Connecticut, acquired grants from Wentworth and New Hampshire. In total, some 135 grants were issued between 1749 and 1764. However, the New York colony objected to the New Hampshire grants, claiming that the region was part of New York and issuing its own grants to settlers. King George III of Great Britain eventually issued a proclamation declaring that the land west of the Connecticut River was a part of New York, but that colony had to respect the New Hampshire grants. Instead, New York tried to force the grant holders to buy new grants for the land and attempted to establish judicial authority in the disputed region. In response, the inhabitants of the New Hampshire grants formed themselves into an armed militia known as the Green Mountain Boys and resisted New York. Among the leaders of the militia were the Allen brothers, Ethan, Levi, and Ira. For several years, conflict and tension roiled the Green Mountains. Then, in the spring of 1775, with the outbreak of the Revolutionary War, the inhabitants of the New Hampshire grants threw their support behind the American cause. In May of that year, Ethan Allen and the Green Mountain Boys were instrumental in capturing Fort Ticonderoga at the southern tip of Lake Champlain. Despite these contributions, the Continental Congress, meeting in Philadelphia, refused to accept the New Hampshire grants as a new state for fear of alienating New York, which still claimed jurisdiction over the region. On January 15, 1777, representatives from the New Hampshire grants formally declared themselves to be an independent commonwealth, named New Connecticut. 6 months later, the name Vermont was officially adopted, and in July, a constitution was drafted. The new constitution allowed universal male suffrage and banned adult slavery in the newly formed republic. Still, many Vermonters continued to fight for the American cause, with the hope of being acknowledged by the Continental Congress. In fact, Vermont troops played a vital role in the American victory in the Battle of Bennington in August 1777. But as the territorial dispute with New York dragged on, many in the Green Mountain Republic grew less enthusiastic about the Revolution. By 1780, Vermont had moved from support of the Revolution to a careful neutrality and became a place of refuge for many British loyalists fleeing the other colonies. When the Revolutionary War ended in 1783, Vermont's bid for admission to the American Union was rebuffed by Congress because of opposition by New York. So Vermont continued to operate as a sovereign state, minting coins, organizing a postal service, and appointing ambassadors. In the late 1780s, the Vermont government even explored the possibility of joining British Canada. Those negotiations with the British eventually failed. In early 1790, however, New York finally abandoned its land claims in Vermont, and by October, the path for Vermont's admission to the Union was cleared. On March 4, 1791, Vermont became the 14th state. For 14 years, Vermont survived as a separate republic, boldly charting its own course of political independence and creating a legacy that still echoes across the Green Mountains. This has been History Shorts. Thanks for watching.